Hey y'all, from Spindle Mountain Mercantile. I am Heather. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's video is the start of a series I'm calling the Unsellables. It's where I take items from my booth that haven't sold for a very long time and I figure out how I can update them or what I can change to make them sellable. So let's jump right in and reflip some stuff. Project number 1. In October of 2022, I opened my booth, and this is one of the first things I made for Christmas that year. I was so proud of it. It was something I found on the side of the road, and I added feet to it by using knobs. It just was kind of eclectic for anything I had ever done. I found these transfers, and it just looked so cute. Well, it's been 3 Christmases now, and I marked it down to $15 this year, and it did not sell. It's time to change it up. It did serve a good purpose because I used it for my Christmas tree farm with all my little tiny Christmas trees I made with bottle brush trees. So we're giving it a really good bath. You can see that I'm still wearing that sling and that brace. Man, it has been almost 2 months since I had my surgery, and I'm still wearing that. I'm ready to be done with that. So this next part I could have edited out, but I thought you would get a hoot out of me attempting to use a screwdriver and a hammer. I thought these were screwed in, but I guess I just glued them on. And by the way, yeah, wood glue works. It's been 3 years. I can't even figure out how to hold a screwdriver with my right hand. The problem is I can use my hand but not my arm, so I can't use more than 2 pounds of pressure. So I finally give up and I'm just going to whack the thing with my hammer. I think I'm using my left hand. So here we go. Oh! Oh my goodness. Remember the Christmas tree in my video about drop cloth Christmas trees where I smashed that tree to get the star on there? Yeah, in our family, we like duct tape and hammers. They're our favorite tools. For the next step, I'm going to coat it with DIY Cottage Color by Jamie Ray in Juniper. This is a 3-in-1 color that includes the base coat and the sealer, so you need to make sure you have it mixed up really well. I have 2 different tools I like to use for this. The first one is this little rechargeable milk frother. It has different attachments, so it works really good in different size, smaller jars, and I can take it with me when we go on vacation or if I'm just moving back and forth from the she shack to the house. I also have a submersible handheld blender, and I like this one the best because it's more powerful and I can use it in bigger jugs of paint. We also have one in our house and we use it for everything from soup to making chicken salad. It is very powerful. I bought them on Amazon, and in the description I will leave a link to them. If you use one of my links to buy something on Amazon, I will get a small compensation from them, but you won't have to pay anything extra. And since I'm working back and forth between my house and my she shack, I decided to use this more portable one. And you guys, it was so much fun. I had my own little splatter box right at home, so I wanted to get some other colors out, but I just didn't have time. I might do that though. I recommend sanding if you're going to paint over another transfer. I didn't think I needed to because it felt super smooth, but after I started painting, you could still kind of see parts of it, and also it felt like it was going to lift. Now it didn't, so I kind of got lucky there. But once I put the new transfer down over it, it was great. You can't tell I ever had any questions about it. I went ahead and applied 2 coats. Those places where you can see the transfer still, I did go over that with a third coat, but nothing else on the entire drawer required that. How to properly pronounce this name is still up for grabs, but it's an Iron Orchid Designs transfer book that I'm deciding to call Millet's Pages. It has a lot of old actual pictures from different scientific books where they have all the different pictures of things and they number them and then put the names down below. So it doesn't quite fit in my drawer perfectly. I have to cut off one row of up and down of eggs, and then I'm going to cut off the words at the bottom and just spread them down a little bit further because I need more height than I do width inside the drawer. I use the term fussy cut a lot, and for those of you who don't know, let me just explain. That's when you don't cut a straight line, but you cut around an object so that you can see the full item. So in this case, it's the eggs. I do it a lot with fabric that has a picture. Just to make sure everything fit how I was seeing it in my brain, I put all of the pieces down, and I did like how they looked, so I went ahead and used my hand to rub over the entire egg transfer sheet. Now that piece of plastic on top of the transfers, that's called a carrier sheet. And the little stick that you use to rub it with, there's one in every single Iron Orchid Designs book, and it's just called a transfer stick. After you press it down with your hand, you rub the entire piece with that transfer stick, and then you go back and with one hand you hold the plastic and you start pulling it back, and as you pull it back right where it lifts off from the piece of furniture or the item that you're putting the transfer on, you rub right across that crease and you pull and you rub at the same time. And when you're all done, you take the sheet with the same side that's down, you leave it down, and you rub the whole piece and every piece of transfer. And that just makes it really stick. And if there's any little maybe edges that are sticking up, that takes care of those. And that's called burnishing. Don't you just love learning new words? My mama always says it's a good day when you learn something new. In my stash, I found this really cool knob from another project that I had changed out the knobs, and it has some roses on the top, but the hole was a little too big. So I put some toothpicks in there to do this trick my daddy taught me when I was just a little kid. I actually took one of those toothpicks out, and you can't see me do that. It just makes the hole tighter so that when you screw it in, that toothpick gets kind of smashed down and it goes around the screw better, and it makes it fit nice and tight, and you can put as many as you want or need, and you can also add glue in there, and that makes it even more sturdy and last longer. Because I really like the look of that knob, I'm going to make the feet match by painting them with black spray paint and then topping them with Debbie's DIY liquid patina in the color Golden Ticket. I only put one coat on, and I leave quite a bit of the black showing because I felt like that matched the knob better. Now at this point you could be done, but I like a little bit of a distressed look, so I'm going to add some of Debbie's liquid patina here and make it look like gilding that has kind of flaked off. So I just put it on pretty heavy at the edge, and then I take my finger and I rub it in different places, not all the way. I don't want it to look like it's all smooth and perfect. I want it to look like it's really old and it just wore away with time. In the corners and on the edges, I kind of puddle it so that it's heavier, and then there's a couple places where I actually let it drip. You can do this as heavy or as light as you want. It's just personal preference. I have even seen people put some on the flat parts, where like the sides of the drawer. I didn't really want that, so I just left it as is. I totally forgot to show you this part. Right there, that's where the knobs were when I took them off the side, but I really didn't care. I want it to look rough and old. I did decide the sides were a little too plain, so I added some butterflies from the same transfer book, and I just cut out the ones that I thought looked good together, and I placed them all over in different positions so that they were flying around like butterflies do, you know. Here's a pro tip. Make sure the paint is really dry before you apply transfers, because if you don't, it will lift some of the paint, and that's why I'm doing touch up here. Even after all the flaws I can still see in this drawer, I think it turned out fantastic. The only thing I might change is I might add a shelf in it so that you don't only have to put tall stuff, but you know what? I thought it would be a really cool little bookcase and you could just stack your books instead of standing them. I think it could be pretty versatile though. But no matter what you use it for, it is really pretty. Project number two is something I did in a previous video, but I felt like it applied here, so I'm just going to include it. Since I already explained how to apply transfers in this video, I'm not going to show you again, and I'll just let you watch while I don't do any talking. And I'm sure my mom is cracking up at that, thinking, yeah, that'll be the day, Heather, not talking. Project number 3. Sometimes you don't have to change things very much to get them to be noticed, and that's the case with these 2 lamps. They weren't in my booth, but my friend had them in her booth, and she recently retired, and after her clearance sale, she gifted me everything that was left in her booth. I was so humbled. It was just such an amazing feeling when she did that for me. This lamp is so pretty on the bottom. I felt like it needed more of a plain lampshade. I felt like that one took away from the base. This lamp, I thought, was, even though it's not plain on the bottom, it didn't have any floral going on, and I thought it could use something fancier on the top. And plus, I want to take that plastic off because you want to show people how it's going to look in their house, and unless they're Ray Romano's mom, they're probably not going to have plastic on it in their house. I wasn't sure how to film this, so I asked my sweet husband if he would help, and of course he said yes. When he put this other lampshade on, I thought, oh, is it going to be too busy? But you guys, it looks really good. It was just right. It had just the right amount of extra to go with that bottom. The bottom's not plain, but it's not busy in the sense with flowers and pictures on it. So with the lamp that shade came off of, the one with the paint on it, we're adding the plain shade. I probably would still be working on this plastic, but my husband, being the knife guy that he is, always has a sharp knife on hand, so he got one out and cut through that stuff lickety split. As soon as he put it up there, I knew it was perfect. I really like how this looks. It's just a plain shade that lets the bottom part of the lamp show itself off. I think my friend had the right price on these. I think she's had them in her booth for a while, so I'm hoping just changing them a little will help. Another thing that helps sell things in a booth is to move them. Even in your own booth, not to somebody else's booth, but if something's in the back or hidden on a shelf, maybe put out in the front. Maybe have a showcase where you can change things around, like put your plates out in the front one month and then the next month put your figurines out in the front. I think these lamps will sell, and I think they will sell for the prices that my friend had them listed for. Project number 4. This is something I really liked, but I think the reason it didn't sell, and again, I've had this for 3 Christmases. I don't think it's sold because it says Happy Holidays, and I live in the Bible Belt. It's supposed to say Merry Christmas. The transfer has started to peel a little bit. I added some paint last year to make it look a little better, but I left a lot of the cracks, but then a bunch of it just started peeling off this year, and I marked it down to $15. I think it's worth more than that. It has a really nice back. I made this with some pickets that I found on the side of the road and just some wood from when we tore our house apart. So I'm going to change it up completely. And I'm going to start by sanding it because I learned my lesson last time. I'm not worried about getting all of the transfer off. I just want to make sure it's smooth enough that when I paint it, that transfer won't lift off. I'm using 220 grit sandpaper. I'm going to paint it with Debbie's Design Diary DIY chalk paint in the color Faded Burlap. And now as soon as I put this on, I thought, oh wow, this matches that wood perfectly. Maybe I could get away with just covering up the Happy Holidays. But I wasn't sure how I could make it blend in, and I thought, you know, I really need to paint the spindles too. Now I did think about sealing the spindles because when you use chalk paint, if you don't seal it, it wipes away and whatever color is underneath it pops through. Well, I thought with what I'm going to put on here, the red actually might look pretty good if I just had a little bit showing. So I went ahead and painted everything with the faded burlap, and I only put one coat. You guys, I didn't follow my own advice and wait long enough for the paint to dry completely. So when I started putting this wreath of lavender around the top spindle, it wasn't dry. I hate it when I do that, and I do it so often. I just get distracted. There's so many squirrels in my life. So I decided I would just stop while I could and lift up where it had stuck and hopefully salvage the parts that didn't stick all the way. And I will come back to it later after I put the sunflowers down. Where I felt like it was dry enough, I just kept placing the plastic back down and then rubbing a little bit more in those little tiny places. And fortunately, the top part came off pretty easily. I did lose just a few little buds, but nothing you could even tell when I was done. I guess I'm just showing you how, even if you are imperfectly perfect, things can still look really good. I did think I had enough to lay out the design to make sure nothing was overlapping where I wanted something underneath the show. Now, I had thought about putting the lavender underneath the sunflowers, but because the sunflowers stems are so thick, I thought the lavender would look better over the top, and so that's what I did. It didn't matter putting the lavender down in my design because it's just going on the top. When I was ready to start the application, I did the biggest piece first. And that way, if there was some overlapping, it wouldn't cover up the smaller pieces that I want to see more of. I don't know if that makes sense, but all I can think right now is Seymour. Feed me, Seymour. And it is a plant. Sorry, squirrel. And again, I'm just going to rub the entire surface with the transfer stick, and I will start pulling up on one corner and work the transfer stick across that crease as I pull up with my other hand. When I'm done, I make sure to burnish it, and remember that's where you take the transfer sheet, the carrier sheet, and you rub the entire transfer so all the little bits and pieces stick all the way down. As soon as I started putting that piece down, I thought, wait a minute, I need a stem for the one that's above it. So I didn't press it down very hard, and I lifted it back up, and I was able to put a stem that would be underneath it. When you're doing layers, remember what you would see first is what you want to put on last. The places that have a gap between the boards, if there's a transfer there, after I'm done, I just take the carrier sheet and I slice it right through that. And then I just take my fingernail or the transfer stick and I rub it down in the crevice and then, or the crack, and then I burnish it. And when I burnish it, I make sure I push my fingernail down in that too, just to make sure it's extra secure and won't peel up from inside that crack. This painterly book has all different kinds of stems for each of the plants, and you can cut them and mix them together to make them taller. When I get to the lavender part, you'll see that it's really short, so I needed them tall. I just wanted a few sprigs to come up along with the sunflowers, and I cut them and matched them up. And remember, with lavender, the pieces at the bottom, the blossoms at the bottom, are further apart than the blossoms at the top, and they are also bigger. So I had to cut pieces apart and just take sections from like the bottom, the middle, and the top, and kind of disperse them likewise when I added them to each other to make them taller. And again, don't know if that makes sense. Because you know what? It doesn't even really make sense in my brain when I'm saying it. But my mom keeps telling me I have a good way of explaining things, so we're just going to go with it. Besides, you can watch and see how I did it, right? You've probably noticed by now I'm still wearing my pajamas. Well, I have good reason. It's still pretty early in the day when I'm putting these transfers on, but I can't dress myself because I can't use my arm all the way. I can only use it in front of me, and I can't put it behind me. It's really hard to get dressed, so I have to wait for my husband to get up and help me get dressed. And besides, these are really cute jammies. They have little wiener dogs wearing sweaters. I wanted to slow this down right here so you could see what I'm talking about. This is how wide the page goes wide. So this is how tall the lavender is, and that's why I had to cut it out individual pieces and then add them back together. I was so relieved when I started working on the top again to find out that I had not ruined the entire wreath. I only ruined just a couple little pieces here and there, and they were like the little part of the blossom that's at the end of each petal, so you couldn't even tell, or like four of them maybe total. And that little piece that's in the top where the V is there, I cut that off and added it to another place to fill it in a little bit, and it looks great. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. The only thing I would do different, aside from letting the paint dry all the way, is I would have not put it on upside down. so I wouldn't have to move the back. But hey, that's okay. That's what my sweet husband loves to help me with, and it's all good. Once again, if you don't like distressing, just don't do this part. You could be completely done. But I want this to look really old, so I'm going to use Dark and Decrepit Liquid Patina by Debbie's DIY, and I'm putting it in all of the little crevices on the spindles. And then I'm going to go down the cracks and around the edge of the entire thing so that it will look like old pieces of picket fence that I found on the side of the road, because these are pieces of old picket fence I found on the side of the road, and I don't want it to look new. Now remember that red is under there, and I want just a little bit of it to show through. So when I put the Dark and Decrepit all over the top of each spindle, I'm going to wipe it down pretty hard so that the pieces that are higher will show where it naturally would have worn. Before I started this project, I really didn't have an idea of how it was going to turn out. I just kind of went with it as I went along, and I could not be more pleased. It actually turned into something I would want to keep in my own house. I think it would be pretty on a front door. It would be, I thought about adding like a candelabra to it or maybe a light fixture. There's just so many things you could do with it. Look at the red peeping through. Isn't that pretty? And I think it looks really good with the sunflowers. So, which one of these projects did you like the best? If I'm speaking solely from a business point of view, I like the lamps. I had to do the least amount of work, and I'll get the biggest bang from my work on the return of that. Now, I try to keep a good balance in my booth between things that I don't have to do very much work to and things I don't have to do anything, maybe not even clean them, to things that I tweak, like adding transfers to, and then things I make from scratch. So, of course, the creative in me loves the things I added transfers to in this video. Now, I also enjoyed that because it was fun to see how far I've come since I first started doing it. There were a lot of things that in those wooden items that I changed, I would have done differently in the first place. So, do you have anything like this in your booth that's not selling, or do you have something on Facebook Marketplace that you're not able to sell? Maybe you could write about it in the comments and we could brainstorm together, and I could even do a video on it. If you have the time to wait for the right person to come along, or if you have the space for that, then it's all good. Just wait for that person. But I don't have that much time or that much space. I like to rotate my stuff so that new people can always see what I have that's new, or that's just been tweaked, or maybe they didn't see it before. I am so glad you guys came along today, and I hope that if you liked my video, you would like it and share it, and join me as a subscriber so that you won't miss any new content. And I hope that until you see me next time, you guys have a wonderful week. And as always, I hope you are blessed. Bye.